Humanity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. The United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria, and numerous
Trump must come in Nigeria. We need him. He must come.
Why would the President of United States criticize Africa's largest democracy? And why is Donald Trump so unpleased with Nigeria's government? And what would be the consequences if things were not done fast? Over the years, and especially in recent years, one issue has persisted in Nigeria: insecurity. Across Africa's most populous nation, countless families have been forced to flee their homes. Entire communities have been reduced to ashes, and thousands of lives have been lost. Mind you, Nigeria is not on war with any country. They are supposed to be a happy country and a happy people. But the story was the other way around. So what is the problem? Why is there so much insecurity in Nigeria? And who are the people causing all this havoc? In the northeast, states like Borno and parts of Adamawa have endured more than a decade of attacks by Boko Haram and its splinter group, the Islamic State West African Province, ISWAP. These jihadist organizations have bombed churches and mosques, attacked schools, abducted civilians, and displaced millions. Their campaign has affected Christians and Muslims alike, leaving entire towns abandoned and creating one of Africa's largest humanitarian crises. But hundreds of miles away, in Nigeria's middle belt, another pattern of violence has unfolded. States such as Benue, Plateau, and parts of southern Kaduna have witnessed repeated attacks on rural farming communities. Many of these communities are predominantly Christians. While many of the armed headers involved have been identified as Fulani, they are popularly referred as the Fulani herdsmen. Over the years, the violence has been fueled over a combination of disputes over land and grazing routes, climate pressures, weak law enforcement, ethnic tensions, criminality, and in some cases, religious identities. Analysts caution that no single explanation fits every attack. For many residents of Benue State, however, the violence feels deeply personal.
I'm an investigative journalist.
Known as the food basket of the nation, Benue is home to the farming communities that have repeatedly come under attack. Survivors describe villages being raided at night, homes and churches burned, and families forced to abandon land they had cultivated for generations. In places like Guma, Logo, Agatu, Apa, and Gwa West, thousands have been displaced, and many now live in overcrowded camps for internally displaced persons. A similar story has unfolded in Plateau states, particularly around Jos and surrounding local government areas. Once celebrated for its diversity, Plateau has become the scene of repeated cycles of deadly violence. Communities have endured attacks on villages, places of worship, and markets, with each new incident deepening mistrust between neighbors. For many Christian residents, the repeated targeting of predominantly Christian villages has reinforced and belief that they are being singled out because of both their faith and their ancestral lands. This complexity lies at the heart of the debate. Many Christian leaders and advocacy groups argue that the repeated attack on Christian farming communities amount to systematic religious persecution, with some describing them as genocide.
The terrorists in Nigeria are now using drones to go find the Christians.
The Nigerian government and many conflict researchers reject the characterization, arguing that the violence stems from a mix of terrorism, banditry, former header disputes, and organized crime affecting both Christians and Muslims. Yet, regardless of which explanation one accepts, one painful reality remained unchanged. Countless Nigerian families have buried loved ones, abandoned their homes, and wondered whether anyone beyond their villages was listening. Before long, the question would be answered, not by governments, but by ordinary people with cameras whose videos would eventually reach the highest level of power in Washington. For years, countless of communities in Nigeria cried out for help. Local leaders issued statements, churches held prayer vigils, families buried their loved ones. Yet, beyond Nigeria's borders, much of the world remained unaware of what was happening. That began to change when a handful of determined voices decided that if the world would not come to them, they would bring the story to the world. One of those voices was Pastor Ezekiel Dachomo, a Christian leader from Plateau State. As attacks on villages intensified, Pastor Ezekiel found himself doing far more than preaching sermons. He comforted grieving families, visited displaced communities, and stood beside survivors who had lost everything. He began using social media to document what he witnessed firsthand, not polished news reports, but raw videos from villages that had been attacked. Churches reduced to ashes, and funerals where dozens of victims were laid to rest. His message was simple but urgent. The world needs to see this. Pastor Ezekiel repeatedly applied to the international community, warning that many Christian communities believe they were being systematically targeted. He called on foreign governments, churches, and human rights organizations not to look away. His advocacy came at a personal cost. According to his public statements, he received death threats.
A letter that the Fulani herdsmen have written.
And his church was attacked and burned during the violence.
9 of my siblings were killed the day before yesterday.
Even so, he continued speaking, insisting that silence would only allow the bloodshed to continue. But then, another unexpected figure entered the story. His name was Alex Babia. Unlike Pastor Ezekiel, Babia was not Nigerian. He was a former American football kicker who played at Penn State and Liberty University before dedicating himself to missionary and humanitarian work. When he traveled to Nigeria, he did more than deliver aid. Camera in hand, he walked through the villages that had been devastated by violence, listened to survivors, visited camps for displaced families, and recorded sayings that many viewers found difficult to watch. Together, Pastor Ezekiel's local testimony and Babia's internal platform created a powerful combination. One was pastor living through the crisis. The other was an American documenting it for a global audience.
In Kabul, they just murdered over 10 people. Innocent Christians. On Palm Sunday.
Yes, the governor.
Enough is enough. The people have fought.
Tinubu, where are you? As your people are slaughtered in the night.
Social media transformed everything. But then, people no longer had to wait for television news or newspaper headlines. They watched mass burial in real time.
You look at this one, we cover his face because they butchered the head.
They saw churches blackened by fire, homes reduced to rubble, and families carrying the bodies of loved ones through devastated villages. This is heartbreaking. Short videos recorded on mobile phone crossed the continent within hours and reached people who had never heard of places like Bokos, Bakinladi, Mungu, or Guma. So, what did Nigerian government do in this situation? What was their action to stop the massive killing? According to many Nigerians, they said no real actions was taken, only words of consolation to the families affected. Yet, the same thing kept happening. The herdsmen could not be stopped. And for the first time, what had long been a regional tragedy was becoming an international conversation, and as those images spread across social media, they eventually reached journalists, advocacy groups, lawmakers, and ultimately the attention of one of the most influential political figures in the world. Millions of Americans were suddenly watching events that had received little international attention. What had once been a local tragedy was becoming an international issue. For months, American Christian organizations and human rights advocates had urged Washington to pay closer attention to violence in Nigeria. They argued that thousands of Christians had been unalived over the years and accused the Nigerian government of failing to adequately protect vulnerable communities. The viral videos shared by Pastor Ezekiel, Alex Babia, and others added powerful visual evidence to those appeals, fueling calls for action in the United States. Then, Donald Trump responded publicly.
Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria.
Nigeria is the deadliest place on earth to be a Christian today.
Thousands and thousands of Christians are being killed.
In a statement that quickly made international headlines, he wrote, "The government of Nigeria has done a terrible job protecting Christians. Horrible killings continue with no accountability." He described the situation as unacceptable and insisted that the United States would not ignore what he believed was humanitarian crisis.
The United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria.
Trump went further, warning that the Nigerian government would face increasingly international pressure if the violence continued. He called on Nigerian authorities to take stronger actions against those responsible for the attacks and stressed that protecting innocent civilians was fundamental responsibility of any government. His comments reignited a debate that had existed for years, but rarely received such high-level political attention. Soon after, senior American officials also began speaking more openly about Nigeria's worsening security situation.
President Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern.
Members of Congress,
to the tragedy Christians in Nigeria are experiencing. The deadly terror.
Religious freedom advocates, and officials concerned with international human rights urged the US government to closely monitor developments. Some called for stronger diplomatic engagements, while others proposed reviewing security assistance and considering targeted sanctions against individuals found responsible for serious human rights abuses.
In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed.
Trump's strongest remarks came when discussing the protection of civilians. He warned that the United States would not remain indifferent if large-scale attacks continued, and suggested that Washington was prepared to consider additional measures to encounter greater accountability. While media reports speculated about possible military options, no US military intervention was formally announced or authorized. An official policy remained focused on diplomacy, counter-terrorism cooperation, and support for Nigerian security efforts. The Nigerian government strongly rejected Trump's criticism, insisting that it was actively fighting terrorism, banditry, and criminal violence across the country. Officials argued that the conflict affected both Christians and Muslims.
The first victims of Boko Haram are Muslims, not Christians. The first victims.
and should not be portrayed as a government-backed campaign against one religious group. But by then, the conversation had already changed. For years, the violence has struggled to gain sustained international attention. Now, it has become a subject of statements from one of the world's most influential political figures. Trump's intervention transformed Nigeria's security crisis from a largely domestic issue into a global political debate, forcing governments, journalists, and international organizations to confront difficult questions about what is happening and whether enough was being done to stop it. As criticism from the United States grew louder, the Nigerian government firmly rejected the allegations. Officials insisted that the country was not witnessing a government-sponsored campaign against Christians and argued that the crisis was far more complex than many international observers believed. The presidency maintained that the Nigerian security challenges stemmed from multiple threats operating across different regions. According to government officials, the country was simultaneously battling Boko Haram and ISWAP insurgents in the northeast, armed bandits in the northwest, kidnapping syndicates, and violent clashes between farming and herding communities in parts of the Middle Belt. They argued that reducing the crisis to a single religious conflict ignored the broader reality on the ground. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs also pushed back against accusations of genocide. It described such claims as misleading and capable of inflaming tensions in an already fragile country. The ministry emphasized that Nigerians remained committed to protecting all citizens regardless of religion or ethnicity, and urged the international community to rely on verified facts rather than emotionally charged narratives. National security officials echoed the same positions. They pointed out that extremist groups such as the Boko Haram, ISWAP have unalived thousands of Muslims as well as Christians, attacked mosques alongside churches, and displaced millions without regard to religious identity. In their view, terrorism in Nigeria is driven by a combination of extremist ideology, criminality, weak government, and competition over land and resources, not solely religion. Government officials also highlighted ongoing military operations against terrorist groups and armed criminals, arguing that security forces had eliminated numerous insurgents, rescued kidnapped victims, and continued to deploy troops to violence-prone areas despite anonymous challenges. For the Nigerian government, the issue was clear. The country was confronting a nationwide security crisis, not a state-backed campaign against Christians. But for many survivors, church leaders, and advocacy groups, that explanation failed to answer a painful question. If this was not targeted persecution, why did so many predominantly Christian communities continue to suffer repeated attacks? That question would remain at the heart of an increasingly heated international debate. Many people still doubted, and they continue to say there is Christian genocide in Nigeria, which is what Donald Trump cannot tolerate. Regardless of which label is used, one fact is very difficult to dispute, and that is thousands of Nigerians have lost their lives. Now, the question is this: can the Nigerian government handle this? Or do they need international bodies like the United States to come and help and stop this Christian genocide in Nigeria? Share your thoughts in the comment section and tell us what you think might be the cause of this genocide and what can be done to stop the Christian genocide in Nigeria.